Story 1. Oh, How the Turntable. It all started with a message on my social media account, a seemingly innocuous comment from someone claiming to offer a great investment opportunity. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was spam. But then the messages continued, increasingly persistent, polite, and oddly convincing. The person going by the name Alex seemed legitimate. They had photos, references, and even a website. I began to pay attention, if only to see how far the scam would go. I was no stranger to online scams, having heard countless horror stories of people losing thousands, sometimes their entire savings, to clever con artists. But there was something different about Alex. The messages were detailed, personal, and appeared to understand my habits, likes, and even recent purchases. A small part of me was impressed, but the larger part of me was immediately skeptical. I decided to play along. If Alex was going to attempt a scam, I wasn't going to be the victim. Instead, I would turn the tables, documenting every interaction, noting patterns, and devising a plan that would expose the scammer while remaining entirely safe. The first week involved subtle engagement. I asked detailed questions, pretending to be interested in the investment opportunity, all the while carefully saving screenshots and noting inconsistencies. Alex responded quickly, using flattery and urgency to build pressure. "This opportunity won't last long," they wrote. "I wouldn't want you to miss out." I smiled at the phrasing, knowing exactly what their tactic was: urgency and fear, classic psychological manipulation. As the interactions continued, Alex became more invasive. They asked for small amounts of personal information, email verification, minor identification documents, and even hints about my banking habits. Each time I provided harmless, fabricated details, testing their reactions and keeping careful records. My goal wasn't just to avoid being scammed, it was to gather enough evidence to expose them completely. After 2 weeks of careful play, I realized I had enough material. Alex had unwittingly revealed patterns: IP addresses that didn't match claimed locations, contradictory statements about their business operations, and repeated attempts to rush me into sending money. I organized the information systematically, creating a timeline of deception and identifying every method Alex had used to manipulate potential victims. Then came the setup. I created a fake investment account, complete with fabricated confirmations and transaction screens designed to look as real as possible. I contacted Alex, pretending to be ready to transfer a significant amount of money, playing the role of an eager victim. Their responses were immediate, increasingly urgent, and filled with instructions on how to finalize the transaction. I followed along meticulously, ensuring nothing risky occurred, while keeping everything on record. As the plan unfolded, I reached out to a cybersecurity group I trusted, providing them with the evidence I had collected. Together, we confirmed the identity of the scammer, traced their accounts, and developed a plan to report them to authorities. At the same time, I continued interacting with Alex, letting them believe the scam was about to succeed. The tension was palpable. Every message they sent, every new instruction, built anticipation for the reveal. The final stage came in the form of a simple message, a fabricated confirmation that the investment had been successfully transferred. Alex responded immediately, sending detailed instructions for account access. That's when I revealed the truth. I sent a carefully worded message exposing the scam, referencing every falsified detail and inconsistency I had documented. Then, using the information gathered and corroborated with the cybersecurity team, I reported the scammer to authorities and online platforms where they had been operating. The aftermath was remarkable. Alex attempted to continue their scheme with frantic messages, but by then, their accounts were flagged, restricted, or removed. Authorities had all the evidence they needed, and I received confirmation that my report would be part of a broader effort to track and prosecute the scammer. Friends and family were astounded by the story, amazed that a potentially dangerous scam had been turned around with strategy and patience rather than fear and reaction. Reflecting on the experience, I realized several important lessons. Scammers rely on urgency, trust, and manipulation. By remaining calm, documenting everything, and using clever strategy, it's possible to turn their own tactics against them. Patience, observation, and methodical planning were more effective than confrontation, panic, or immediate action. Even more importantly, I found a sense of empowerment in turning a potentially harmful situation into an opportunity for justice. While many victims suffer silently, the careful exposure of the scammer not only protected myself but contributed to broader accountability online. What could have been a frightening, financially damaging scenario became an example of how intelligence, preparation, and caution can prevent victimization. In the weeks that followed, the stories circulated among friends and online communities. I received messages from others who had encountered Alex, now reassured that the scammer was being tracked and held accountable. It became a teaching moment, not just for me, but for anyone vulnerable to similar tactics. The thrill of the scammer's overconfidence, followed by their ultimate exposure, was almost cinematic, a reminder that patience and planning often outweigh fear and impulse. Months later, the incident still comes to mind whenever I navigate online spaces. The memory of Alex's frantic, increasingly desperate messages is a reminder that manipulation, no matter how sophisticated, can be countered with strategy, evidence, and calm resolve. I had turned a moment of potential vulnerability into a narrative of empowerment, proving that intelligence and patience can transform fear into action and danger into justice. The experience also reshaped my approach to digital security. I became more vigilant, more cautious, and more aware of patterns in online communication. I shared my story widely, emphasizing the importance of observation, verification, and calm strategy. The tale of turning a scammer's overconfidence against them serves as both a cautionary tale and a story of triumph, demonstrating that awareness and patience are invaluable tools in the digital age. Looking back, the incident reinforced a critical lesson. Those who seek to deceive often overestimate the gullibility of others, underestimate the power of careful observation, and fail to anticipate strategic resistance. By understanding their tactics, documenting behavior, and planning a measured response, I was able to protect myself, expose wrongdoing, and contribute to accountability that extended beyond my own experience. Even now, months later, the story of Alex and the attempted scam serves as a reminder: patience, intelligence, and preparation can turn a moment of danger into one of empowerment. Scammers may think they are clever, but strategy, evidence, and careful execution are far more formidable tools. And in the end, justice was served not through anger or retaliation, but through calm, deliberate, and methodical action. Story 2: A rival faced poetic justice. It started innocuously enough. Another long day on the road, commuting through the busy streets of the city. Traffic was the usual mess. Cars inching forward, horns blaring, and drivers impatiently trying to carve out a few seconds of advantage. I had learned early on that patience was essential. But there was one driver who seemed to have made it their mission to ruin my day. The first encounter was almost laughable. I was merging onto the freeway when a sleek black sedan shot past me aggressively, cutting directly in front of my car, forcing me to brake suddenly. I honked, flashed my lights, the usual polite warning, but the driver didn't even glance at me. They sped ahead, weaving dangerously between lanes, as if the rules of traffic didn't apply to them. At first, I dismissed it as a one-off. But the same car appeared the next day, same lane, same aggressive maneuver. And the day after that, each encounter chipped away at my patience, replaced by a mix of frustration and disbelief. It was as if the driver knew me personally, targeting me alone among hundreds of other commuters. I began noting patterns. The car was always the same make and model, black with tinted windows. The driver favored morning commutes on the freeway, always near the on-ramp that led directly to my exit. The frequency, the timing, the audacity, it all felt deliberate. And the more I thought about it, the more it became clear. I needed a plan. Something that didn't involve road rage or recklessness, but would ensure that justice was delivered. Days turned into weeks. Each encounter escalated. The black sedan cut me off in intersections, blocked merging lanes, and even followed closely behind, braking suddenly just to intimidate. My anxiety rose, but I refused to be the person who let road rage dictate their actions. Instead, I focused on observation and strategy, like a game of chess on asphalt. I started documenting everything: photos of the car when traffic allowed, dashcam footage, license plate numbers, and even timestamps of each incident. I shared the information with a trusted friend, someone who understood both my patience and my planning skills. Together we mapped out patterns, noting locations where the driver was most aggressive and considering ways to turned the tables without violating laws or risking safety. It wasn't just the freeway anymore. The black sedan began appearing in unexpected places: shopping center parking lots, side streets, even near my apartment complex. It became almost like a psychological game. Each time I saw the car, my heart would rate quicken slightly, a mix of irritation and wariness. I imagined the driver smirking behind the wheel, convinced they were in control, unaware that their every move was being quietly documented. I also began reflecting on my own reactions. At first, the frustration was immediate and visceral, honking, muttering under my breath, imagining the perfect retort if we ever spoke face to face. But over time, the frustration shifted into a kind of fascination. How audacious could someone be? How oblivious to consequences? And more importantly, how could I let natural justice unfold without compromising my own safety? Then came the perfect opportunity. It was a Friday afternoon, traffic heavy as usual. But I had identified a stretch of road where the black sedan always sped ahead to cut in, just before a sharp curve leading to a series of traffic lights. I prepared mentally, planning a safe but strategic response. I didn't want revenge born of anger. I wanted justice, poetic, undeniable, and safe. As expected, the sedan appeared, weaving aggressively into my lane. I maintained my distance, calm, and followed their predictable route. Approaching the curve, I noticed that the light ahead was about to change to red, and a narrow lane opened on the right, a lane the black sedan always ignored, cutting recklessly into my path. I adjusted slightly, keeping the car under control, allowing the driver to follow their usual pattern. Then it happened. Just as the sedan attempted to speed through the red light, ignoring the rules entirely, the lane I had observed opened with a line of slow-moving traffic. The black sedan was forced to brake sharply, nearly clipping the bumper in front, honking and swerving in frustration, remained behind calmly, letting the sequence unfold. The final twist was both subtle and satisfying. A police patrol, coincidentally monitoring that stretch of road, observed the black sedan's reckless behavior. The driver, in a rush to regain their advantage, had ignored multiple traffic rules, weaving dangerously and exceeding the speed limit. The officer activated their lights and followed. I watched as the sedan, confident and arrogant moments ago, was pulled over, ticketed, and admonished, their arrogance undone by both law and circumstance. The poetic justice was exquisite. The driver, who had spent weeks attempting to intimidate me and dominate the road, faced the consequences of their recklessness. No confrontation was necessary, no words exchanged, just patience, observation, and strategic timing allowed justice to unfold naturally. I felt a wave of relief and quiet satisfaction. But the story didn't end there. In the following days, the black sedan was noticeably absent from my route. Other drivers, perhaps observing or experiencing the same recklessness, were now wary of that stretch of road. And I, having maintained composure throughout, found my own patience and confidence strengthened. The experience became a lesson in the power of restraint, strategy, and the inevitability of consequences. I reflected on the weeks leading up to the moment of justice. I remembered the small, irritating encounters, the sudden breaks, the aggressive weaving, the horns, and the nearly catastrophic merges. Each incident, while stressful at the time, had allowed me to understand the patterns of behavior, to anticipate the arrogance and overconfidence of the driver, and to prepare mentally for the perfect moment. The anticipation of poetic justice, as strange as it may seem, had a satisfying psychological effect. It allowed me to transform anger into observation, anxiety into strategy, and daily frustration into a game of planning and foresight. Instead of reacting emotionally, I channeled energy into documentation, pattern recognition, and mental preparation, turning the scenario into a controlled environment where I would eventually emerge vindicated. Months later, the story still resonates whenever I take that commute. The black sedan, once a symbol of daily irritation and intimidation, is now a memory, a lesson in patience, strategic thinking, and subtle justice. Even on days when traffic is heavy or drivers are reckless, I recall the satisfaction of witnessing consequences unfold naturally, without risk, confrontation, or anger. The tale has also become a personal metaphor, one I share with friends when discussing patience, strategy, and justice. It demonstrates that immediate confrontation is not always necessary, and that observing, documenting, and timing one's actions can produce outcomes far more satisfying than impulsive retaliation. The driver who sought to dominate the road through intimidation ultimately faced accountability, and I, through restraint and strategy, emerged unscathed and vindicated. Even now, the story resonates. Arrogance, recklessness, and aggression often meet their match in patience, planning, and subtle strategy. The black sedan, once a source of daily frustration, became a lesson in poetic justice, reinforcing that sometimes the universe, coupled with a little careful observation, ensures fairness without a single harsh word. In the end, I realized that every challenge, every confrontation, and every act of recklessness has the potential to teach patience, strategy, and restraint. The rival driver, who had spent weeks trying to unsettle me, became the unwitting teacher in a story of justice, timing, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from allowing consequences to unfold naturally.